Plaintiff Richard Scott claims his ex-roommate was a nightmare. He's suing her for $5,000 for back rent, utilities, and miscellaneous expenses. Defendant Andrea Scott claims she moved out because the plaintiff made her feel unsafe.
This is case number 246 on the docket, Scott versus Scott.
We have Mr. Scott. You are suing your ex-roommate, Andrea Scott, for $5,000 for back rent, utilities, and other miscellaneous items.
I ended up having to endure a roommate from hell. I was previously living out of my car. I then ended up moving into the location, and several days later, she ended up being...
what? Was this a house?
It was an apartment, and I have the ad for the apartment here.
Okay, so you had been living in a car, and then you...
Temporarily, yes.
Temporarily, I understand. Then you found this ad.
We ended up signing on a lease to assume for 6 months out of a 12-month lease.
Who signed the lease?
The lease was signed by myself, the other roommate that I have, and Andrea Scott here.
How long were you there before she became a tenant?
A couple of days.
Oh, okay, so you got the place first.
Right, I was in the place first.
Okay, so you signed the lease, and then
Right.
when this other roommate came, he signed the lease?
Correct.
And when the defendant came, she signed the lease?
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
She was pretty much a nightmare from hell. I moved in, was hoping that there wasn't going to be any problems, and that's exactly what I ended up with.
Well, what was the problem?
She's basically going from a standpoint where she thought she was going to be in control of everything and try to push for her way on everything.
Give me an example.
Prior to her acquiring internet, I was using hotspot availability. She went ahead and got internet, and at the time, I thought me and the other roommate were done out of being able to get service for ourselves because I thought you could only get one setup in the apartment at the time. One of the few times I ended up talking with her, I offered to pay for a third of it, and I was sure the other roommate would do so likewise, and I was pretty much just snubbed off at that point.
Your side of the story.
So the reason we're here today is because I was in fear for my life. Mr. Scott is unstable. Almost immediately, I was kind of pushed off because I thought I was moving in with another female. And found out after I'd given this person my deposit and my first month's rent that I was moving in with two males.
His name's Richard.
His name is Richard, but on the advertisement
Yes.
that he says he found on Craigslist and I happen to find on Facebook, it doesn't say anything.
Oh, it doesn't say who.
Yeah, and the person I was speaking to was a female about the apartment.
Yeah, explain to me how this works.
Okay, so she was in the apartment and she was trying to get out of the lease. So she was looking for people to come in and take over the lease.
Oh, I see.
So that's how we all ended up there together. But my
And she
understanding...
didn't tell you that the other roommate was male?
No. She
All right.
said you can, after I gave her the money, she said now you can go to the apartment and you can meet the other roommate. And at first, I didn't even meet Mr. Scott. He wasn't there. I met the other roommate.
Okay.
And that's when I found out that Mr. Scott was the other roommate, that he was a male, and that he was in the smallest room, and I would have the second biggest room, and the other roommate had the master bedroom.
Right.
Well, when I moved in a couple days later, Mr. Scott had moved out of the room that he had moved into the second room, and I was put in the smallest room. So I was just kind of like, 6 months, you can do this. You know, it's just for 6 months.
Yeah.
So, a couple of weeks after being there, I noticed that we didn't have internet access, at least I didn't. He did, because he had the entire apartment basically to himself. He moved in all of his stuff into the living room, all of his stuff into the kitchens, all of his stuff into his room, and he was on the internet quite often. But I knew I didn't have access to it, so I went to the cable company and got internet.
Yes.
He did ask me, can we, pay a third of it and have access? I was like, well, no, because I only got enough bandwidth, or whatever you call it, for my few devices that I had.
So you were concerned that the bandwidth wouldn't handle 3 people?
Correct.
Okay. What made the place untenable for you to leave before the end of the lease?
I noticed that my internet connection was running slow, my internet was going out, so I checked where it was hooked in. I noticed that someone had taken it and split it, so it wasn't just going to my cable thingy, whatever you call it, router. It was going from the wall to my router and another cable to his devices.
You did that?
I put a splitter on there, yes, but I was trying to hook up my television as well to get antenna signal.
Okay, but you didn't have her permission to do that?
No.
So I undid it, put it back to where it was supposed to be, and at that point, I guess that maybe made him mad. And when I noticed that my internet had gone out again one time and I was rebooting it or whatever, and the names of the different Wi-Fi's come up, he had put, for his Wi-Fi name, you bitch.
Oh, and that name wasn't already being used?
No.
Tell me about the day you left. How many months had you already been there?
So I moved in on January 11th, and I moved out on May the 4th.
Okay, so you were there.
About 4 months.
So now it's May.
And I decided to leave because I had told not Mr. Scott, but the other roommate, after all of the shenanigans that he was pulling with being aggressive towards me, that I was going to be moving. I said, I don't feel safe.
Okay.
He's rushing towards me over a light switch.
What do you mean rushing towards you?
Well, I was in the kitchen, and I was leaving the kitchen, and just out of habit, you turn the light switch off. He was about a little bit further than he is now in his recliner, doing his thing on his internet or whatever. And when I hit the light switch, my back is kind of to him, but he swings around and rushes towards me to where I have to be like, whoa, what are you doing? Like, what is going on with you? Calm down. And he says, well, leave the light switch on.
From her point of view, it was an untenable situation. And you admit there was incredible tension and all that. So the question is, what part of the 3 months that she left and didn't pay the rent that just under the lease she would owe, should she have to pay? You sued for $5,000, which would include the rent for May, June, and July, and you're suing for $1,998, which you say would be her third of the utility bills.
Correct.
And then miscellaneous items. All right, here's how I'm seeing this. And there's also a lesson here.
Your Honor, I was afraid.
I understand. I'm not saying you didn't ever...
I had a legitimate reason.
Anyone who is afraid, for whatever the reason is, if they're afraid, obviously you're going to get out. What I would say in hindsight, looking back, why anyone would sign a lease, take on a roommate that they haven't even met, and make a 6-month commit... Okay, let me finish. A 6-month commitment, because I would say in most cases, if you just sign on and have a roommate, you don't know what that person's habits are. You don't know what their personality is like. You don't know if they like to drink, if they like to party, if they like to smoke, if they've got a temper, what sets them off. Do they stay up late at night making a lot of noise? You have no idea. And you sign on for 6 months with the responsibility, and you accept the roommate that you have no idea what the roommate's going to be like. Right. And you didn't even know that it was a guy. Normally, there would have to be 30 days notice that you were leaving. That is what is done when it's month to month. I get it. She was afraid. I'm going to only hold you responsible for the 1 more month because you didn't give that 30-day notice, and also 1 month of the utilities. When I add up the 1 month $550 rent, the 1 month utilities, your third would be $667. So the total I come up with, he put $1,998 for 3 months utilities.
That's
Is that the 1/3?
That should be for the...
Okay, hold it. Okay, what?
That should be for the rent for each month, because she was accountable for $550 a month. And then
I'm asking what the 1998 where you put utilities.
That might have been mislabeled.
Yes. What is that 1998 for?
The 1998.
It's out.
Utilities.
Done.
Okay.
So only, yeah. I mean, that's a pretty big thing. Okay. So I find then for the plaintiff, just for the 1 month's rent, $550.
She ended up owing more, and she basically got to talk her way out of it. I will take better precautions in the future to avoid this sort of thing.
This guy was truly unstable. He would leave the bathroom horrific. He would leave Post-it notes all over the apartment talking about don't touch his stuff. From here on out, I'm just going to live alone.
Scott.